All right, let's talk about a puzzle that once you see it, you start seeing it everywhere. It's this strange paradox that kind of sits at the heart of how we think, and it explains so much, from silly arguments to some of the biggest problems we face. You know, it's funny. Charles Darwin wrote this over 150 years ago. He had this incredible insight that the less someone knows, the more confident they seem to be. We've all felt this, right? And it turns out, wow, he was really onto something huge. I mean, really think about it for a second. We have all met this person, the one who watched a couple of videos and now speaks with this unshakable certainty, totally dismissing people who have spent their lives studying a topic. It's baffling, it can be super frustrating, and it happens all the time. So here's the thing. This isn't just some random personality flaw. Nope, it is a predictable glitch in our own psychology. And today, we're going to break down the science behind it, and then we're going to get into a truly mind-bending theory about why our brains are wired this way in the first place. Okay, so first things first, let's put on our detective hats. What is actually going on in someone's head when they're both bad at something and totally, completely unaware of it? And that leads us right to this landmark idea in psychology, the Dunning-Kruger effect. See, back in the late 90s, two researchers, David Dunning and Justin Kruger, they put a name to this phenomenon. The core idea is just so simple, but it is so powerful. Basically, the skills you need to be good at something are the exact same skills you need to realize you're not good at it. So if you're missing those skills, you're flying blind. And listen, this wasn't just some theory they dreamed up. They actually tested it. They ran studies where they gave people tests on things like logic, grammar, even rating jokes. And the results they got back were, well, they were pretty wild. And this is where it just gets crazy. Just look at this gap. The people who did the absolute worst, we're talking scoring down in the 12th percentile. They didn't think they did poorly. They thought they were pretty great. They estimated their performance was way up at the 62nd percentile. I mean, that's not just being a little optimistic. That's living in a completely different reality. So why? Why this huge blind spot? Well, Dunning and Kruger realized that these folks weren't just being arrogant. They were struggling under what the researchers called a dual burden. Okay, so let's break that down. It's a 1-2 punch. First, their lack of skill makes them perform poorly. That's burden number one. But then, and this is the real kicker, that same lack of skill makes it impossible for them to see their own mistakes. It's like their incompetence creates its own camouflage. They literally don't have the mental tools to spot their own failings. But what's so fascinating is what happens at the other end of this spectrum. While the unskilled are blissfully unaware, the real experts, well, they often have the opposite problem. They tend to underestimate their own abilities. Why? Because they know their field so well, they just assume that these tasks that are easy for them must be easy for everyone else too. You've probably heard of this. We often call it imposter syndrome. So we have a name for it. We've seen the data. But it still leaves you with this bigger, kind of unsettling question. Why are we built this way? Why is self-awareness so tricky? What if the Dunning-Kruger effect isn't just a simple mental mistake, but a clue to how our consciousness actually works? And this is where our investigation takes a really interesting turn. To truly get why we're so bad at seeing ourselves clearly, we have to zoom way out and ask a much bigger question. What even is a self? For that, we turn to the philosopher Thomas Metzinger. In his book, The Ego Tunnel, he offers this absolutely stunning idea. He argues that the feeling you have right now, that feeling of being a single, solid you inside your head, looking out at the world, is an illusion. It's a highly sophisticated simulation your brain is running. Metzinger's idea is that our brain creates a biological virtual reality to help us navigate the world. And to do that, it needs a main character, an avatar. That avatar is yourself. So you don't have a self in the way you have a brain. You are a self model. You're not in the simulation. You are the simulation. A really good way to wrap your head around this is with Plato's old allegory of the cave. Your conscious experience, everything you see and feel right now, it's like the shadows flickering on the cave wall. We think those shadows are reality, but the real action, the true reality, is the impossibly complex web of neurons firing in your brain that's creating the show. We never get to see the machinery. We only get to see the simplified user-friendly projection. So if we bring it all back, if our self is just a model, then it's going to have blind spots. It's going to have glitches. And the Dunning-Kruger effect suddenly starts to look less like a moral failing and more like a predictable system error. The simulation simply can't see the edges of its own programming. Okay, I know that is a heavy concept, a little weird, maybe even a little unsettling, but here's the cool part. Understanding the problem is always the first step to figuring out what to do about it. If we know that our self-perception is naturally flawed, if we're all walking around in these ego tunnels, how do we get a better view? How do we poke a few holes in the wall of that cave and let some real light in? Well, the research points to a few really powerful strategies. The first one is obvious. Just keep learning. The more you learn, the more you start to see how much there is you don't know. Knowledge is the ultimate cure. Second, and this one's tough, you have to ask for feedback. Since you can't see your own blind spots, you need to rely on other people's eyes. Ask someone you trust for their honest take. And third, you have to question yourself constantly. Actively search for information that proves you wrong. It's hard, but it's the best way to fight that natural urge to just confirm what you already believe. So in the end, the confidence paradox shows us something really profound. Our sense of self isn't a perfect reflection of who we are. It's a story the brain tells itself. But knowing that is actually incredibly empowering. It means you're not stuck with the first draft of that story. You can learn, you can grow, and you can decide what kind of character you want to be next.